Released by developers Asobo Studios and publishers Focused Home Interactive on the 14th of May 2019, A Plague Tale Innocence is a game I knew I'd appreciate from the get-go. From the preview trailers, there's some games that I'm completely drawn to. From the reveal, I can say with confidence, A Plague Tale Innocence did not disappoint. Let's sum this up.
You seem off to a good start, Magister.
A Plague Tale is a deeply story and character-driven experience. While it's not a visual novel or any such thing, it does have relatively deep gameplay elements. It's really fueled by the narrative.
What are you talking about?
A Plague Tale Innocence revolves around Amicia, who shortly after the beginning of the experience is tasked with protecting her younger brother Hugo, who is afflicted with a mysterious illness, one which Amicia needs to find a cure.
You have to take your brother to Laurentius.
The doctor?
Yes, he helped me treat Hugo.
Now, as complicated and arduous a task as that may seem, there's more. On their quest, they not only have to evade and battle with filthy Inquisition scum, but then there's the stars of the show, the fucking rats. Now, if you have any kind of phobia regarding these pesky vermin, then maybe you should steer clear of this one. As I have found through my years doing this, that although your fears are real and the game isn't, it can still pose a challenge. I first learned this while trying to play Aliens Trilogy on the Saturn with those facehuggers, and again in Farpoint for PSVR.
Good lord.
There's more to this story. It slowly and methodically unfolds as you progress. Now, this wasn't a great story, and later down, the story took a turn which I will elaborate on a bit more later. But my point is, the story isn't bad, but at no point would I say it was great or overly engaging. The story works and works just fine, especially since this is a video game, but it's impossible to pull wool over my eyes. It's a well-made game, but I can see past that.
Shut up!
The story regardless is accentuated by the overall presentation. First, let me jump into the sound. Superb voice acting, no B-movie performances here. Everyone sells their roles perfectly, even irritating little Hugo.
Leave me alone.
I particularly love Amicia's accent. It closely reminds me of a Czech accent, which I have an affinity for.
Very good.
The score fits like a glove also. You'll never, for any reason, forget that you're playing a game set in 14th century France.
Well, I'll be damned.
Then we have the visuals. While Asobo Studio, to my knowledge, aren't exactly gaming giants, it's clear effort was put into this project. This game isn't like Red Dead gorgeous, but it does still shine in the graphics department. Whether your treks take you through ravaged, rat-infested streets and towns, or you're leisurely walking on a beautiful sunny day, the world of A Plague Tale is well represented visually.
Oh yeah?
And on the subject of rats, the scenes with these pests are well designed. You can almost feel the disgust, the pestilence, the torment. Many times while going through this experience, I was thinking, what if this happened now? How did people live like this?
I don't know. I don't want to think about it right now.
When I got to an era where there were no rats, where I didn't feel suffocated by the oppressive atmosphere, I would generally feel a weight lifted. So as far as the visuals and sound go, and story, most necessary tools for a satisfactory, immersive experience are present.
Yes, I believe so.
Let's now talk what really matters, and the relatively new wave of retro-styled pixel art releases of the past few years proves this. The gameplay. Without solid gameplay, your product is worthless. Here's some of what really grabbed me. Early, the controls.
Oh, alright.
The controls here are really smooth. Walking, running, using your sling, it all comes together seamlessly, without many hitches.
Yes, of course.
I couldn't help but notice this girl runs like a track star in comparison to those tools in Call of Duty. Look at her go.
Take them out, Amicia!
This game is basically one huge, glorified escort mission. Now, while myself, everyone else and their moms know what a pain escort missions can be, I'll have to say, it was handled beautifully here. I can tell the devs gave a fuck. Careful planning was put in place to create a game that felt genuine to its purpose, and not just some half-assed gimmick. This game was designed ground up for stealth and escorting. I strongly believe this is the reason it was done so well. For what felt like maybe 98% of the game, you were taking care of your brother, from literally holding his hand to giving him piggyback rides. While maneuvering through the various perils of these plague-ridden lands, you not only have to watch your own back, but your tightly tethered sibling as well. There are even times when you're moving about with others. There are only a few points where I saw errors that could have used some tightening up, but for most parts, the escorting worked well. Your team members weren't there as window dressings, and nothing felt like an unnecessary or shoehorned-in inclusion. There were no moments like in a game such as Far Cry, where stealth is a major factor in the game, but Basic fundamentals like going prone are excluded. No, this game was designed with most of the necessary tools intact. When you came upon spots where teamwork was needed, it didn't seem like the developers just threw it in. I guess that also helped with how severely linear this experience is though. And when I say severely, I'm talking about linear to a Call of Duty level. You know what I'm talking about. The do this, go there because the script says so kind of approach. Heavily scripted. Now I have no problems really with a linear game. Once a fad is created, once a good idea has been conceived and realized, it's a game of monkey see, monkey do. When games went 3D, every game, including titles that should have remained 2D, went 3D. The same with the advent of first-person shooters, Battle Royale, PvP, the list goes on. So when open-world games became a thing, cowardly conformist devs and publishers were afraid to make a game that wasn't open world. So every fucking game had to become open world. Hence we ended up with trash like Mirror's Edge 2 and others, where you had an open world, nowhere to go, not one damn thing to do.
I'm so sorry.
The point of this rant is, not every game has to go with the latest craze. The devs deciding to make A Plague Tale linear was a good move. I'll admit, some of the invisible walls were downright jarring, but it was a good choice nonetheless. I don't always want to go exploring, and there's very little exploration here.
What is happening?
And things like this where if you're trying to distract a guard, you throw a rock right beside him, he doesn't hear it. But if you throw a pot and it breaks, then he hears it. No, little things like that. The video game shit. It tends to break immersion at times.
Shut up! You're going to get us killed!
Let's talk the difficulty level. I played on what I believe was the hardest setting, no HUD, etc. And this game was paced really well, regardless. I had my moments where I had to redo a few spots, but the experience was overall a very balanced one. There were no I'll quit for a while moments, no real frustration brought about through the game's challenge. I'd encountered many puzzles, none were particularly difficult. They mostly required common sense and teamwork from your companions, and this game does have quite a bit of handholding, just like Uncharted, just like Call of Duty, and many others. The devs want you to succeed, and because of that, they'll sometimes, most times, spell things out for you.
Amicia, his lantern.
I understand.
So should you end up stuck, maybe this entire genre isn't for you. You're probably more a FIFA or Call of Duty kind of player. Who knows?
That's enough!
And should you find an encounter particularly challenging, like the parts later in the game where Amicia takes the kid's gloves off and decides to start fucking people up one after the other. In these scenarios, because Amicia isn't a trained killer, things may get a bit bothersome. But should you expire, checkpoints galore, similar to a Call of Duty game, so starting way back will seldom occur.
Amazing.
I also found the camera to be very refined. Very few devs get this right in a third-person experience. Even heavy hitters struggle with this. But A Plague Tale Innocence seemed to have got it right.
That's very kind of you.
Now this is the part of my review where things start going downhill.
He's going to slaughter us!
Now I'm not saying things just took a sharp turn down bullshit alley, but some of the things I spoke on earlier, I actually loved about this experience. But what we're getting into is what I'd like to consider the okay section.
Spit it out! What on earth is it?
Now, crafting. I was never a huge fan of crafting in games, but in games like Far Cry, I could deal. Time and place for everything, I suppose. Here in A Plague Tale Innocence, crafting seemed almost superfluous. I'm not saying it's bad or totally left field. It simply didn't feel necessary.
I see you have a sling. You're going to need it, but it'll be no use to you in that state.
Anicia's sling, I agree, is a bullshit weapon to be forced on you the entire game. Especially one like this, which for most part is grounded in a certain level of reality, and not some platform game with some talking animal shooting fireballs with it. It's a bullshit weapon, and to upgrade it makes sense, but just like certain points in the experience where your colleagues just hand you shit, basically just gives you upgrades, I believe the sling could have been treated the same, and all other abilities you craft. You should just level up, some way, somehow. There should be no crafting stations. Games like Dead Rising, it's understandable, but it seemed like an idea one person just came up with like, hey, crafting is still a thing, throw it in there. It just does not feel like that kind of game. I will admit, when I did craft something new, it felt good, as all improvements should. I just didn't really love the crafting for it, and the grind to get these items strewn about. Many a time, after going through hell in the rat-infested world of A Plague Tale, I would find a crafting station, only to see I didn't pick up enough stuff to craft anything new, or I picked it up and used it before I reached the station.
Do you have a better idea?
And the load time between stages were also pretty bad. It didn't actually get under my skin or anything like that, but it was noticeable.
Now I return to the story. Remember I spoke of a twist? Well, the Asobo Studio devs apparently couldn't let this game slide on its refreshingly real story. The story is so real, so gritty, so compelling.
But then all of a sudden it had to remind me.
This is just another game. Asobo Studios had to include some video game shit. Now, while there were no dragons, goblins, wizards, and elves, that whole Lord of the Rats thing threw me off and it disappointed me. The entire time I followed this game, up to the time of playing it more than halfway through, I was gripped by how real the experience felt, for most parts. But when things started getting weird, with the fucking Rat King thing, and I'm not saying this killed the experience for me, but it certainly diluted it. I really wasn't expecting anything supernatural here, and though I believe the devs made an effort to explain it, and not make it seem too left field,
But they failed.
it still was. At the risk of giving too many spoilers away, I'll leave it at this. Shit got real in the beginning, to the middle, and then got real crazy by game's end.
You're lying!
The ending of the game also felt off, like there should have, or at least could have been more. But it kinda solidified for me the fact that either the devs didn't want a bit more transparency which would have helped make more sense of the game's lead up to the finale, or the devs simply couldn't come up with a better explanation and decided, hey, fuck it, just do this for the ending, then let the credits roll. That's what I took from the wrap-up of A Plague Tale Innocence. A decent story, but could have had more cohesion.
Little idiot.
I separated this from the section where I spoke about the difficulty for a reason. The duration. The duration was fine, not too long, certainly not too short. But after certain revelations in the story, I kinda wanted things to wrap up. The experience didn't become unbearable or anything, just lost me a bit. And so I say the duration was acceptable. But if it wrapped an hour sooner, I wouldn't have complained.
You're way too soft.
Here are just a few things I left for last. The shit I did actually hate about A Plague Tale Innocence. I did say I had no problems with a linear game, but I meant the path, not necessarily anything else.
Lying! I hate you!
Plague Tale restricts the player a bit too much. While trying this whole normal girl protagonist thing, they went overboard. As most devs do. I get it, she's no mercenary or elite Black Ops soldier. I'm not expecting her to dive through a swarm of rats in slow motion while slowly taking down several Inquisition soldiers with headshots with her sling, but come on, she can do more. Now while I know the game was designed around the sling thing, there were way too many points in this game where I found myself asking, why the fuck would she not pick up an axe? A fallen enemy's sword? A blunt object? Anything but this fucking impractical toy.
Are you stupid or what?
How many times I expired simply because she needed to swing the fucking sling just one extra time. This brings me to a major flaw, and it involves said fucking swinging sling. If you try to release the sling at the very last second when an enemy is close, you will by necessity fail. It happened so many times. I let the sling go, but because the attacker passed a certain point, my attack got cancelled. That was bullshit. So these are the things that really irritated me. The just a girl with her toy limitations imposed on your character. With that said, nothing was game breaking, nothing was downright awful. A Plague Tale Innocence is a well-crafted creation. Hats off to Asobo Studios on a great development. This is one man's opinion. Ultimately, it's your call. If you've played A Plague Tale Innocence, let me know how you felt about it in the comment section below. Haven't played it, but on the fence? Let me know what you think now. And if you like this video, leave a like, a sub, a comment, hit the bell. If I pissed you off, then the next logical course of action would be to hit the dislike and unsub buttons. I won't hold it against you. Our game is never over.
Wow. Is it over?